The Valdrian Empire spanned 47 star systems, commanded fleets that could glass planets, and boasted technology that bent the very fabric of space. Yet none of this mattered to Oscar Chen as he mopped the obsidian floors of the Imperial Menagerie's reptile wing at 3 in the morning. He was humming an old Earth tune when he heard it, a sound like crumpling paper mixed with a kitten's mule. Oscar paused, wringing his mop into the bucket. The sound came again, weaker this time, from behind the massive reinforced tank labeled Draconis Stellaris. Extreme caution. Oscar shouldn't have looked. He definitely shouldn't have approached. But 20 years, as a janitor on alien stations, had taught him that suffering sounded the same in every language. Every species. Inside the tank, past the energy barrier that shimmered like heat waves, a creature no bigger than his forearm lay on its side. Its scales were dull bronze, and its wings delicate as silk were crumpled against its body. The hatchling's eyes, brilliant gold even in distress, fixed on Oscar with an intelligence that made his breath catch. "Oh, you poor thing," Oscar whispered. The dragon, because what else could it be, made that paper-crumpling sound again. Its tiny chest heaved with effort. Oscar looked around the empty corridor. The night shift supervisor wouldn't make rounds for another hour. The feeding schedule posted on the wall showed the hatchling's last meal was 3 days ago. 3 days. The notation read, "Imperial Order, restrict feeding to encourage aggression for arena trials." Like hell, Oscar muttered. He'd been carrying his lunch in his maintenance bag, a habit from growing up poor in New Shanghai, never knowing when the next meal might come. Tonight it was a simple meat sandwich and a thermos of bone broth his neighbor Daisy had insisted he take. Daisy Park worked in the station's hydroponics bay, coaxing food from nothing, with the same stubborn determination that defined humanity's expansion into the stars. "You're too skinny, Oscar," she'd said, pressing the thermos into his hands. Now Oscar studied the control panel. His maintenance access could lower the barrier for 30 seconds, enough time for emergency cleaning. Enough time for something else entirely. His fingers moved before his common sense could stop them. The barrier flickered and died. The hatchling's head lifted slightly, nostrils flaring. Oscar poured the broth into a shallow dish and slid it across the floor, then tore the sandwich into pieces and scattered them within reach. "Come on, little one," he urged softly. The dragon's eyes tracked the movement. Then, with effort that clearly cost it, the creature dragged itself forward. Its first lap of broth was tentative. The second was desperate. Within minutes, every scrap was gone, and the hatchling's scales already looked brighter. It looked at Oscar and made a sound like wind chimes. "You're welcome," Oscar said, feeling foolish but oddly satisfied. He reactivated the barrier and continued his shift. He came back the next night, and the next. Each time, he brought food. His own dinner, protein bars, even a package of expensive imported fish that cost him a week's wages. The hatchling grew stronger, its scales shifting from dull bronze to brilliant copper gold. It began to recognize him, pressing against the barrier when he approached, its tail swishing with what Oscar could only call joy. On the 7th night, Daisy followed him. "I knew you were up to something," she said, arms crossed, watching as the dragon, now the size of a large dog, devoured the stew she'd made. "You've been skipping meals. Don't think I didn't notice." "Daisy, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you've got the biggest heart and the smallest sense of self-preservation in the known galaxy." But she was smiling. "Next time, just ask. I'll help." They became a team. Daisy smuggled food from the hydroponics bay. Oscar used his maintenance access to cover their tracks. The dragon thrived, growing larger and more magnificent each day. Its scales now rippled with colors that defied description: sunset, bronze, stellar gold. The deep red of dying suns. Then came the night the Emperor himself visited the menagerie. Emperor Valdrian VII was an imposing figure, 9 feet tall, scales black as the void, eyes like burning coals. He stopped before the dragon's tank, and his expression of satisfaction turned to shock. "This hatchling should be near death," he hissed to the curator. "Weakened, desperate, ready for the blood trials. This dragon looks thriving," the curator stammered, pulling up logs, calling for security. Within minutes, cameras were reviewed. Oscar and Daisy were found in the maintenance office, still holding empty food containers. They were dragged before the Emperor, security officers' weapons pressed against their backs. Oscar's mind raced through every story he'd heard about Valdrian justice. None of them ended well. The Emperor stared down at them, his expression unreadable. "You are the janitor who defied imperial orders? Who fed my prize specimen?" Oscar lifted his chin. "Yes, Your Majesty. That specimen was starving. I wasn't going to stand by and watch anything suffer. I don't care whose orders said otherwise." Beside him, Daisy nodded firmly. "We both did it. If you're going to punish someone, punish us both." Silence stretched across the menagerie. The Emperor's tail lashed once, twice. Then he did something that shocked every Valdrian present. He laughed. It started as a rumble deep in his chest and built into a sound like thunder rolling across mountains. "You defied the Emperor of 47 systems to feed a hungry baby." He shook his massive head. "Tell me, human, do you know what species that dragon is?" "The sign said Draconis stellaris." Oscar replied cautiously. "Stellar dragons," the Emperor said. "Bond for life, with those who show them kindness in their youth. They are the rarest, most intelligent, most powerful creatures in the known universe. I acquired that egg at tremendous cost, planning to break the hatchling's will, to make it a weapon." He gestured toward the tank, where the dragon watched them intently. "Instead, you have given the Empire something far more valuable, a stellar dragon raised with compassion, one who will remember the kindness of humans." The Emperor stepped closer, and Oscar resisted the urge to flinch. "It will accept no other companions." His eyes glittered with something that might have been respect. "By our oldest laws, this makes you dragon keepers a position that answers only to the Emperor himself." Daisy's hand found Oscar's, squeezing tight. "Your species is strange," the Emperor continued. "You see a suffering creature, and your first instinct is not to exploit it, but to feed it, to care for it, even at personal cost, even in defiance of power that could destroy you." He inclined his head, a gesture of respect that sent ripples of shock through the assembled Valdrians. Perhaps there is something the Empire can learn from humanity after all. 2 months later, Oscar Chen and Daisy Park stood on a balcony overlooking the Imperial Gardens. The dragon, now the size of a shuttle and magnificent beyond words, lounged beside them. Its tail curled protectively around them both. Its name was Hope, because that's what Oscar had given it on that first desperate night. "Can you believe this?" Daisy asked, leaning against Oscar's shoulder. 6 months ago, you were mopping floors. 6 months ago, we both were just trying to get by," Oscar corrected. He scratched Hope under her chin, earning a rumble of contentment. "Now we're advisors to an emperor, all because we couldn't watch something suffer." Hope lifted her head, golden eyes reflecting the stars above. In her gaze, Oscar saw the future, a universe where power without compassion would give way to something better, something more human. "Not a bad day's work for a janitor," he said softly. Daisy laughed, and Hope's rumble of agreement echoed across the gardens like rolling thunder. In the end, it wasn't humanity's weapons or technology that impressed the Valdrian Empire. It was something simpler, something that cost nothing but everything. The refusal to look away from suffering, and the courage to feed the hungry, no matter the consequences. That was the most human thing of all.